Broadway Broadcasting presents Fifth Row Center, the secret to Broadway's best seats in the house. Roma Torre, three-time Emmy Award-winning journalist and acclaimed theater critic, returns to television to reprise her signature theater reviews and exclusive insights. Plus, she brings us inside the 2025-2026 live theater season. And we bring you into the conversation with our exclusive live interactive roundtable. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for details. Join Roma Torre in the best seat in the house. This is Fifth Row Center.
Welcome to Fifth Row Center. I'm Roma Torre, broadcast journalist, theater critic, and above all, a true believer in the magic of live performance. In my career, spanning nearly 40 years, I've had the aisle seat as the chief theater critic for more than 3,000 live performances, most of them on Broadway. For the next half hour, we are talking all things theater, but not just by repeating glossy marketing blurbs or chasing celebrity buzz. Instead, I'll bring you a more critical lens, what really works on stage, what falls short, and why this art form matters now more than ever. Because if you're spending your hard-earned money and precious time in the audience, you deserve to have the best seat in the house. This is our very first episode, our opening, so to speak, and I want to show you around the show. We'll always begin with the big stories and standout productions. You'll also get my signature reviews, as candid as ever, but with more context, and that's just the beginning. There will be many other marquee segments, including a recorded as live Zoom-style roundtable conversation that you can join in. When you subscribe to Fifth Row Center on YouTube, TikTok, and all our socials, you'll find out exactly when we're recording so that you can play a part. The idea is to bring new voices into the conversations with movers and shakers from everywhere in the industry, Broadway, off-Broadway, London's West End, even those legendary out-of-town tryout cities like Boston, Chicago, and Denver, and the touring productions. It's like a virtual stage door, your chance to ask meaningful questions to your favorite performers, directors, and creators, and be part of the conversation. We are feeling so very blessed to have this platform. Theater is one of the most precious art forms we have. It's intimate, immediate, and vital, and we are here to celebrate it with you. Thanks for joining us. Let's start the show. The 2025 fall season here in New York promises to be one of the most ambitious in years. From Broadway blockbusters in the making to daring off-Broadway premieres, the energy of our stages is electric. But it's not just New York. Exciting productions are bubbling up in Los Angeles, Chicago, London, and beyond. So let's take a look at what's opening across the industry. White Lotus and Gilded Age star Carrie Coon returns to Broadway in the Steppenwolf hit Bug, written by her husband, the Tony and Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright Tracy Letts. It's a psychological thriller directed by David Cromer. Legendary British actor Ian McKellen stars in An Ark, though not in the flesh. The mixed reality production requires audiences to experience the unique work through a set of glasses with shoes off. For 1 week only, in January, theater audiences are in for a real treat if they can get in to see Finding Dorothy Parker by Douglas Carter Beane. It stars Julie Halston, Jackie Hoffman, Anne Harada, and Annika Larson as the sharp-tongued writer. Harry Potter star Daniel Radcliffe does solo work in Every Brilliant Thing about a man who makes lists for reasons to live. The heartfelt work arrives on Broadway after playing in more than 80 countries. John Bernthal headlines a stage adaptation of the Al Pacino film Dog Day Afternoon. Written by Stephen Adly Girgis, it promises to be a wild ride. John Lithgow reprises his Olivier-winning performance as Roald Dahl in Giant. The play opened in London to rave reviews. Billy Crudup fans may want to book a flight right now to London to see the West End's stage adaptation of High Noon that just opened, based on the classic Gary Cooper Western. If you're traveling in the new year, you might want to take in two very different takes on Mary Lincoln. Abraham's wife is the title character in the dark comedy Cole Escola's Oh Mary, as well as a more serious exploration in Mrs. President. Downton Abbey patriarch Hugh Bonneville stars as the famed author C.S. Lewis in the revival of Shadowlands. He is joined by the acclaimed actor Maggie Siff. And from witch to vampire, Wicked star Cynthia Erivo is donning the cape and fangs to take on Dracula in a bold adaptation by Kip Williams, whose Tony-winning The Picture of Dorian Gray stunned audiences last season. And just like Sarah Snook, who performed all the parts in that multimedia work, Erivo will be solo on stage, playing all 23 roles. We have a lot more coming up on Fifth Row Center.
And there was distant music, skipping a beat, singing.
This is one of my favorite shows on the boards right now. It's the star of our upcoming review segment. Find out if it's the right pick for families, out-of-town visitors, or the musical theater connoisseur. Also coming up, our roundtable discussion. We chatted with some big names in the theater. The Queen of Versailles got mixed to negative reviews. And if, most people are making their determination what to see based on word of mouth, I don't know, what people are saying walking out of the theater, but obviously that contributed to its early closing, don't you think? There's no denying quality will sell a ticket. Although
it's also if you produce shows that people want to see, you can announce a show and it might not turn out not to be good. If people say that sounds like something I want to see, they will go and see it. If you remember, Wicked got bad reviews, but it seems like the audiences went and loved it. And, it's a big hit. Les Mis did not get good reviews. There are shows which if people want to see them, and if people then go and are pleased with what they see and enjoy them, that's what makes the show a hit. Now,
Hi, Roma, and congratulations on Fifth Row Center. Why do I love Broadway? For many reasons. But where else would you see the most talented people on earth telling our very human stories in front of a live audience so that we can all share a communal experience? Broadway makes us better people.
Hi, I'm Mark Scholl. I love Broadway because audiences are so savvy. And usually when I'm here, and this is the third time I've been here, it's usually because we've done a play that's been a success in London. So it's a both. Anyway. I love the West End because some of the subsidised theatres in London and the theatres that have memberships tend to have the same audiences and you can never get a ticket. The West End, if you're lucky.
Presents Broadway Unscripted.
In our very first Broadway Unscripted roundtable today, we are asking, is Broadway pricing out the very audiences that support it? The Broadway League just released its 2024-25 demographic report, and the numbers tell a story producers may not want to hear. For 3 decades, Broadway depended on suburban audiences driving in from the outer boroughs. New Jersey, Westchester, Long Island, Connecticut, the Bridge and Tunnel crowd, we call it. That era seems to be over. Suburban attendance has collapsed to under 13%, and it is a 30-year low. So who's filling those seats now? Well, according to the numbers, tourists, millionaires, and a shrinking circle of superfans willing to pay upwards of $200, and as we've seen, a lot more. Well, today we are asking, is Broadway pricing out the very audiences that support it? So here with the numbers and what they really mean, our inaugural guests and good friends, Pacheco, a theater journalist, host of Theater, All Moving Parts on CUNY TV. He's a writer as well as an author. Patrick has been covering Broadway's business and cultural shifts for 3 long decades, and I worked with him some of those decades proudly. Stephen Suskin is a theater critic, author of 17 books, among them The Sound of Broadway Music and Second Act Trouble, and one of the sharpest analysts of Broadway's financial realities. Stephen and I, full disclosure, are both critics for the very dynamic theater website, New York Stage Review. And we welcome Alexander Robertson. When I say your name, Alex, I want to sing Alexander Robertson.
That's actually how I introduce myself. Hi, I'm Alexander Robertson.
It has a ring. You are the future of Broadway, Alex. He is a young phenom producer with a bunch of credits already to his name. I think 10 Broadway, 6 off Broadway, and he is
Yes.
only at the tender age of 27. So, all of you, I appreciate you logging in and joining us. All right, that was a long introduction. There were some very interesting numbers in that report, and we all know that Broadway is not a terribly affordable art form. There's that word, affordable. But when you see $276,000 is the average household income for theater goers to Broadway, what, Patrick, does that say about the industry and its viability? And does that even surprise you?
No, it doesn't surprise me because it is quote unquote said to be an quote unquote elitist form. Unquote. That said, I think the statistics also showed that the average age was 41, which of course isn't 70 or 65. And there are some good stuff as well among the statistics. What strikes me is that people have been saying that Broadway is dying or dead for as long as I've been covering, and it's been more than 3 decades. It's probably been more like 5 decades. Richie, in a chorus line, says, I want people to stop talking that Broadway is dead because I just got here. So I think there are some dire problems, and yes, they are financial, but there are some solutions, and I think those will be provided by Alex and other producers like him. And I think you can't look at the statistics through rose-colored glasses, but you can look at them through clear eyeglasses and see that yes, there is a future to Broadway, but there are some problems to surmount.
So, on the surface, it sounds like good news. The 14.7 million people attending Broadway shows, which is the second highest. So people are going and they're willing to pay those prices. The total grosses reached an all-time high, $1.89 billion. And we also see that it's the super fans, and those are the diehard fans. They make up 8% of the audience, but these are people seeing 15 or more shows a year, but they account for 40% of the ticket sales. So let me ask you, Alex, do these numbers scare you at all? Because you're going to have to really rely on those diehard fans to attend your shows. And, as we saw in another graph, we're losing suburban audiences, which you folks in the producer ranks have been counting on.
Of course, yeah. I think every year that a report like this comes out, it's very easy to go, oh, things are changing. It's not the same. We're losing people. And I actually see it as an opportunity to look around and see who is presently attending our theaters and strategize how we can continue to elevate the offerings for those people, but offer things for other groups that are not represented in these numbers. It is true that the trends have seen sort of a lack of the suburban audience over this last year. I think there are a lot of things that contribute to those types of trends that aren't just due to Broadway specifically. But that also has given us such a great opportunity to look at audience development in new places. What gets them to a Broadway show? What is their awareness of what is out there that they can attend? And a lot of times I keep hearing this over and over that folks have a hard time choosing what to see because these tickets are a decent price for a lot of folks. And when you're deciding to go see a show and you have a family of 4, you're going to take a lot into consideration and you don't want to take the risk on potentially seeing something that's not entertaining or enjoyable. So there are a lot of factors that go into where we are in the market, but I say lean into the change. And if it means that we now have to cater to an audience that is expected to come back over and over, which I love. If you've seen a show and you love it enough to attend over and over again, seeing a different cast member or a different part of the show, maybe, I think that's exciting. And I think we should lean into finding ways how we can continue to get folks to come back in a theater.
Things have changed, obviously. And Stephen, I want to put this one to you because, you've been around a while. You've observed the Broadway culture and the Broadway scene. And we're discovering there are fewer musicals being produced, and producers are telling us one of the main reasons is that they cannot afford to to pay these exorbitant costs to mount a production. And perfect example, Queen of Versailles, starring Kristen Chenoweth with music by Stephen Schwartz. It was supposed to be a mega hit. Instead, it became a colossal flop. And producers announced it is closing even sooner, just recently, by 2 weeks. They moved up the closing date than originally planned. And I'm just going to read to you a quote from the producers when they announced that it was folding earlier. They said, unfortunately, the harsh economic realities of new Broadway musicals in a post-COVID landscape have caught up with us. The industry as a whole is no longer seeing the audience behaviors we've relied on to shape our strategies for decades. And this has led us to the painful decision to move our closing earlier to Sunday, December 21st. So, Stephen, let me ask you a question. 20 years ago, would a show like The Queen of Versailles survived?
No.
What's changed?
First of all, it needs to be a good show. Now, there have been a lot of good shows that have not succeeded financially, which is part of what we're discussing. But then there are other shows which just don't work. You had Queen of Versailles, you had Tammy Faye last year, very similar. Part of the problem, I believe, comes from this wonderful thing we have called premium pricing. A hit musical can do $2 million a week or more. So once shows started grossing 2 million or even 3 million on good weeks, the other shows coming along seem to have budgeted themselves on the assumption that, well, if we do $2 million a week, we'll make a lot of money. The fact is, it's only the massive successes, the Hamiltons, the Wickeds, they're the only ones who really can gross 2 million and upward. And other shows, which are good shows and enjoyable shows, and which audiences like, they might sell out. They might sell at 1.5 million. Now, they can still make money at 1.5 million, but if they're planning on making the sort of money you make at 2 million or 3 million, you're never gonna. You can't do that. So the budgets have become incredibly high and unrealistic. To produce musicals for $15 million is kind of ridiculous. And 15 million you can't even do anymore. Now it's come to 20 million, 25 million.
20,
Uh, you
26?
know,
Yeah.
26. It's hard to recover $20 million when you're not profiting, half a million a week.
I wanted to share this with you because I think you would find it interesting. In real time, the larger conversation of what I think they were saying with that statement for Queen of Versailles, about the current state of the economic pressures, they're not taking ownership for the content of what they're presenting. What they are referring to is their ability to project how long they can continue to run a show. So the audience trend of people buying tickets 6 to 8 months previous to the pandemic was how we were able to calculate that a show could run. Okay, like let's say it's December, we know, okay, I can make it to January, I can make it to end of February. Now in real time, across the board, it's looking like over 50% of the grosses, like for these shows, are happening in the same week, which is very scary because it means we can't in real time predict the whether that audience will show up that week or not. So that is where we're at. That is a very scary pain point that it isn't really being publicly talked about. It's just I know this because I'm in these rooms and these meetings every day, but that's what's actually happening. It's that the audience habits have changed extremely, and we have to figure out a new way to be able to continue to run our shows and project them without knowing what the months ahead will look like for us.
That is
Interesting.
scary. It really
Yeah.
is. I mean, that's really a massive change in the theater buying habits or the theater goers buying habit. There's no advance.
Well,
Exactly.
going back many years, you always had shows which were hits, which would indeed be sold out in advance. But then you always had shows which, a Monday you didn't know what was going to be coming in.
There's a fun fact that the average price of a Broadway ticket, I suppose, is always, throughout the decades, has always been 10 times the price of a movie ticket.
I think it's more now, but now it used to be. I looked up some figures. Something like Gypsy and the original. It was a $9 ticket.
Yeah. When I arrived, Chorus Line was the top ticket when I arrived in New York was
That's
$15.
15, right?
Mm-hmm.
My mom did a segment on one of the shows she was working on. I'll never forget. She said, "Can you believe the act starring Liza Minnelli? They're asking $25 a ticket. Can you believe it?" And she's never even in the show. Remember, she she was always out sick for one reason or another. So it was the understudy, $25. Yeah, right. So, gentlemen, Stephen Suskin, Patrick Pacheco, and Alexander Robertson, thank you all so much for your insights and your expertise. And thank you out there for joining us for our very first Broadway Unscripted Conversation. Our next live roundtable topic, Critics on Critics. That's coming up. Maybe Stephen will join us again. And in future episodes, we're going to investigate all the alternative ways that people can get tickets at a more affordable price. Be sure to follow us, and you can get us on social media at Fifth Row Center. And if you want to log on to our website, it's a little bit different. It is fifthrow.center.
As I stand here outside Lincoln Center, I am surrounded by people chasing the American dream. A guy rushing to work, someone pushing a child to daycare perhaps, or a kid racing to school. Meanwhile, inside the Vivian Beaumont Theater up there, that exact chase plays out every night, 8 times a week on stage. The story is more than a century old, but it really is us right now. Originally, this revival was supposed to run just 14 weeks, but EaseUS Ai, the director, has taken on her and extended into the month of June. That gives you just a little more time to book seats to this epic splendor. And here now, my review of Ragtime Music.
Based on E.L. Doctorow's classic 1975 historical novel and adapted for the stage by book writer Terrence McNally, along with composer Stephen Flaherty and lyricist Lynn Ahrens, Ragtime is truly timeless. This nearly flawless Lincoln Center Theater production ranks among Broadway's best of all time. With that rousing opening number featuring the entire company as if in a moving American tapestry, we're introduced to each of the main characters. There are so many of them, in lesser hands they'd be reduced to stereotype or simply lost in the shuffle. But here, so masterfully staged by director de Bessonet and choreographer Eleanor Scott, the combined effect of music, story, and performance on that mostly bare stage is breathtaking, and it left audiences cheering and weeping right from the start. Doctorow's story begins in 1902 when ragtime music symbolized a turning point in the country. Weaving the fates of Americans, black and white, with the newly arrived huddled masses, McNally's book focuses the complex tale on 3 sets of families. We first meet the affluent family in suburban New Rochelle, led by father, the excellent Colin Donnell, and mother, beautifully played by Casey Levy, with a warmth and strength that puts an indelible stamp on the role. Then there are the folks from Harlem, the ragtime musician Coalhouse Walker Jr. With his colossal pipes and commanding presence, Joshua Henry seems born to the role of the doomed character. It is a magnificent performance and one that must not be missed. Together with the astonishing Nichelle Lewis as his lover Sarah, the two will break your heart. The immigrants are represented by the Jewish Tata and his young daughter, newly arrived from Latvia. Brandon Uranowitz delivers another extraordinary performance and a high mark in the fine actor's career. Other key roles include real-life figures, union organizer Emma Goldman, the great African-American leader Booker T. Washington, headlining showgirl Evelyn Nesbit, and the famed magician Harry Houdini. They each have key roles to play in this captivating saga, and in so many ways, their lives parallel the experiences of Americans and immigrants in the present day, still subjected to soul-crushing racism and abuse, as justice is routinely granted or denied, depending on skin color. This is also a show in which the entire score deserves the highest praise. In fact, there isn't just one 11 o'clock number, as is the standard in so many great musicals. There are several bona fide showstoppers, sending audiences to their feet. Yes, the show is long at close to 3 hours, but it leaves you wanting more. Music has a unique way of bringing people of all stripes together, and that's why shows like this have the power to enlighten, inspire, and remind us what we look like at our best and worst.
People call it ragtime.
Ragtime the musical not only sings beautifully, it speaks to us with a relevance and a resonance that connects us all. And that's what makes a masterpiece.
The Broadway League is an incredible resource for theater lovers everywhere. Today, we're shining our first spotlight behind the scenes on their powerful work. Founded back in 1930, 95 years ago, the League started as a way to unite New York's theater owners and producers. Today, more than 700 members carry that mission forward, bringing the magic of Broadway to more than 30 million people every year, not just in New York, but in hundreds of cities across North America. The League supports the national touring productions as well. They also manage extensive archives like IBDB, the Internet Broadway database. Think of IBDB as Live Theater's version of IMDb for the movies. It's an index of productions from New York City theaters, 18th century beginnings, all the way to today. On IBDB, you'll find detailed information on cast, creative teams, song lists, awards, photos, and even box office stats. It's an interactive, official, searchable resource for League members, journalists, researchers, and plain old Broadway fans. And you'll definitely be hearing me quote them a lot on this show. Their fact gathering is invaluable. That's a wrap on our first show. And remember, at Fifth Row Center, we believe the best seat in the house is right here with us. Don't miss a minute. Subscribe to our YouTube at Fifth Row Center to learn the exact time of our next panel, and be sure to join in. Follow along on Instagram and Facebook at Fifth Row Center. And for extra takes, real talk, and a little backstage chaos, you can join me on TikTok at Roma Torre NYC. So thanks for choosing the best view on Broadway, and I'll be looking for you in the Fifth Row Center.